For centuries, Britain, France, even the US sent governors, guns and gospel into Africa in the name of civilization. Today, China is rewriting that story, not with muskets, but with massive railways, solar farms and no tariff trade routes. But is this new model a mutual win or a different kind of dependency? In mid-June 2025, Changsha hosted the 4th China-Africa Economic and Trade Expo themed Together Toward Modernization. Over 30,000 delegates from 53 African nations, along with some 4,000 plus companies, converged on 100,000 square meters of exhibition space. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi emphasized creating more opportunities and pledged unwavering support. Now, this marks a high watermark in China-Africa trade. Bilateral trade topped some $295 billion in 2024, up 4.8% year on year, with African exports to China reaching over $116 billion, a rise of some 6.9%. Over 30 economic and trade activities covered smart mining, clean technology, health technologies, traditional medicine, and even youth entrepreneurship. From Kenyan flowers to Congolese artwork and Tanzanian sapphires, local producers also shared space with Chinese equipment manufacturers and health innovators. Deals worth over $11 billion were preliminarily agreed, and just to give a few notable wins, in Ghana, a Rami-based agriculture industrial tech project promises over 10,000 jobs in mining communities there. And now in Zimbabwe, health ministers toured the medical booths and they aim to import diagnostic equipment for cancer care. And then a final example, provincial leaders from Kenya, Liberia and Uganda endorsed infrastructure, energy and technology collaboration. You know what, this isn't just infrastructure, it's real jobs, real skills and real services, and especially in the health industry, this isn't just big business, but hopefully people's lives are going to improve and people are going to live longer and healthier. In stark contrast from other major countries and unions, in Changsha, China, they announced the removal of all tariffs on exports from its 53 African diplomatic partners, including middle income nations. This effectively drops duties across both developed and least developed African exporters, with special support measures, training and marketing for lower income economies like Tanzania and Mali.
峰会期间，中方总共同30个国家建立或提升了战略伙伴关系。中国和53个非洲战略伙伴并肩站在一起，必将为促进中非人民的福祉、维护世界的和平稳定发挥更大的作用。
China also pledged some 360 billion yuan, something like $50 billion in credit lines over 3 years. Collectively, these steps aim to balance a previously tilted trade. China held about $62 billion in trade surplus in 2024, but it's working to sort of even that out a bit. But it's not by putting tariffs on those countries, it's by reducing those tariffs, getting rid of those tariffs and getting rid of those duties and extending credit lines. African Chinese investment isn't limited to trade. From January to November 2024, in Hunan province alone, they saw 47.3 billion yuan in African trade, up some 18 billion yuan since 2018. And then since 2019, this expo has enabled some 300 plus, I think it's 336 projects worth approximately $50 billion, 83% of which are now implemented. So imports include things like the Zoomilian cranes to South Africa, industrial parks in Ethiopia, Cote d'Ivoire and Nigeria, plus I think there are soybean facilities in Tanzania, and then there are lots of other green mineral ventures going on across Africa. Now, I know some of you may think that China is just interested in the minerals and mines of Africa, but let me list just a few of the other projects that showcase that Chinese engagement extends far beyond extractive industries. So first of all, we've got Ethiopia's Eastern Industrial Zone. It was built with Chinese capital, and now it's a hub for textile and leather exports. Second, we have Kenya's Standard Gauge Railway. So that's a $3.6 billion project, and that's boosting inland transport and trade connectivity, which is incredibly important. And third and finally, and forgive my pronunciation, but Ghana's Asogli power plant, which was about $140 million venture under the China Africa Development Fund, and that's now providing clean energy. So it's not just those extractive industries, it's also about transport, it's about energy, and as I mentioned, textile and leather goods as well. Now let's talk about skills and education. Some 74,000 students, African students, have studied in China, surpassing UK and US enrollments. And I can tell you, here in Chengdu and Sichuan, there are lots and lots of African students. Technical training centres and pilot zones offer skills transfer, cultural dialogues through traditional medicine booths, youth entrepreneurship forums, and art exchanges lay groundwork for deeper ties. People-to-people diplomacy subtly complements the big ticket deals. And it was important that I mentioned sort of the arts, Chinese medicine, and all those things as well, because I think people get this idea that most African students come to China to study, and all they study is engineering and business. Now it's and computer sciences, I should say as well, IT skills. Now it's certainly true that those are the most attended majors, the sciences, engineering, and business. That is true, but there are also other culturally diverse subjects that African students, when they come to China, they study. And I think it's really important. Not only are they gaining those skills and that education, but there are deepening ties between the youth of Africa and China. Now, hopefully you guys know me and know this channel by now. We try to show both sides of every story. So let's talk about the potential negatives of what's going on. First of all, debt concerns. Loans for railways or plants may burden budgets, what they call sometimes debt diplomacy. Of course, there's also the environmental risk, especially with mining. Even green minerals can degrade land. And of course, there's also transparency issues. Contract details often remain murky, reducing oversight. Who really wins out of these agreements? Are certain ministers personally doing well in Africa or anywhere else? But China says that this model focuses on industrialization and digital transformation. So it's not all that extractive dependency. And you know what? With improved governance, these are manageable concerns. But I just think it's right, even in this video, when I'm telling you pretty much positive stuff about what's going on, that we do talk about the other side of it and potential concerns. And if you do have any concerns, whether you're in China or in Africa, or know more about this subject, please do put it down in the comments below. And now a little geopolitics, because of course, although this is trade and investment focused, politics always plays a role. And what I'd like to do is sort of contrast and compare what China is doing now with what other countries have done in the past, and perhaps what they're even trying to do now. So first of all, no foreign military bases. Sometimes in the past, other countries have said, yeah, we can trade, we can even invest in you, but we'd like a military base, please. And that really contrasts sharply with what China is doing. That sort of colonial era tactics, China really doesn't subscribe to. Wang Yi described Africa as a true friend and sincere brother, and it's all part of the larger Belt and Road Initiative, that strategy which seems to be working. If we talk about sort of some of the older powers, your France, your UK, even the US, they often came with political strings. But China leads into modernization and mutual development, a pitch that resonates with many African leaders. So there you have it. China isn't just buying resources, they're co-building economies. Africa isn't just a supplier, they're partners in manufacturing, technology, and services. Yes, there are risks, but the scale of investment, education, and trade reform is real. Guys, thank you very much for watching. If you've enjoyed this exploration, hit subscribe, ring the bell, and tell me below, answer this question if you will. Is this the dawn of a true South-South partnership, or just a new chapter in global hierarchy? Guys, thank you very much for watching again. But from me, Toby, here in China, Toby's takeaway in sweltering heat that could well be hotter than most places in Africa right now, here in Sichuan in southwest China. That is a wrap. Thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Bye for now, guys. 再见. Bye bye.